Hey everybody, welcome in. Chief Meteorologist Brad Penovich here at WCNC Plus, your live weather impact for this Wednesday evening. It is now February 4th, and while I'm never a big fan of cold rain, this is probably one of the few times we can all be happy because last night, at least for most of our area, and I will say most because we had some slick spots up in the mountains and foothills after rain and a refreeze up there. It wasn't a big deal, but there were some accidents up in the Blowing Rock, Boone area this morning. Most of us stayed above freezing for the first time since the 23rd of January. It has been a while since we've seen temperatures above freezing. So we actually thawed and melted a lot of snow. And right now I'm looking at rain on our radar. Here's a look at the radar out there. In the corner of the screen, you'll see the Clash briefly there. We had it up. That's the NASCAR event that's hopefully going to happen tonight. It looks like everything's full on. We'll talk to Alex Williams here in a second up FMY. They are hosting that. We'll get a big rundown on the weather up there. As far as I know, that's going on, rain or shine. So they're looking good right now. And it might be more rain than shine for sure because we've got some light rain out there on the radar. I'm watching carefully to see if this back builds a little bit. What I mean by that is we're starting to see some returns showing up back in the Midlands of South Carolina into the Savannah River Valley, going back into Georgia. Now in the mountains and foothills, this looks like snow, right? I got one report from McGrady. Thank you for our spotter up there, that area. He said big, fat, wet snowflakes, but I was checking the cameras in Boone, Blowing Rock, even Beech Mountain. Looked like it was rain mixing with snow, and that's kind of the vibe I'm getting up there right now based on the cameras. To the southeast, this is clearly all rain, but as I widen this out, you'll see back to the northwest, we do have some colder temperatures. So you can see even in the mountains where you would expect this, yeah, this has got to be snow, Brad, right? It's barely freezing there in Boone and Jefferson. So we certainly could have a mixture going on there. And this is a spot. This exact location will be kind of the area we watch late tonight into early tomorrow for a mix of rain and snow because cold air is moving in. It's we often call this cold air chasing the moisture. And sure enough, here comes the cold air, but the moisture is moving out at the exact same time. So it's a race. Which is going to happen first? I think it's going to be close enough that there'll be a little crossover where we could see a brief mix. But here's the thing, just because it snows doesn't mean it's going to cause rough issues on the roads because temperatures, while they could get much cooler tonight, and I do expect it to get near freezing, if you're at 31, 32 with snow, it tends to be wet and melting on. It's not icy. You normally have to be in the upper 20s. You think about the snow we had this past storm. The temperature was pretty consistently upper teens, low 20s. It was frigid Arctic air. That was sticking. This is going to be more of what I like to call white rain. And I said that earlier, and Colin was laughing at me, but I call it white rain because it's basically cold rain. It's just falling as wet snowflakes. So from a road impact standpoint, the impact's limited to many locations. So our hourly forecast tomorrow morning, 34 in the morning, but there could be some light snow mixing in, certainly possible. But most areas are actually going to be above freezing tomorrow. So no matter what falls, it's not going to cause a big deal. Now, this is kind of a unique setup. The cold front pushes through, but the moisture lingers. This is kind of what we call an inverted trough, that black line that's going back. That's helping to enhance some of the moisture on the backside. It's kind of rare for that to happen. 9 out of 10 times it doesn't produce a whole lot, but our Futurecast is insisting on at least some flurries around daybreak tomorrow. But notice the temperatures. Not frigid. This is not going to be that big of a deal. Once the sun comes up, even though it's cloudy, that's still enough to probably melt most of them. I mean, if it's snowing at 33 or 34, that's basically rain, right? And so I don't anticipate big issues. By the middle of the day, we're close to 40 degrees. Now, I think the bigger issue is probably going to be Friday morning. So this is 1 o'clock Friday morning. So way, way early. It's like basically Thursday night. Anything wet from the rain tonight, early tomorrow, melting snow still, that is going to refreeze Friday morning. We're going to be in the 20s. That is cold enough, long enough to cause issues with a refreeze. So to me, I don't expect travel issues tomorrow morning at all. They'd be super isolated to limited. But Friday morning might be one of those things that catch you off guard because people see snow falling and they freak out. But when there's no snow falling, but the road temperature is like 29, that's actually probably the scarier time. And I think that's the time frame we could see some issues. Really cold air coming in Friday night and Saturday. We're going to start the weekend on a super cold note, but temperatures recover. Now, our winter weather impacts, this is from the Weather Prediction Center. The light gray is limited, so it's kind of telling you we're not expecting much of anything. The dark gray means nothing at all, which includes most of Charlotte. So here's kind of a timeline. If you're going to see snow, 2 to 9 a.m., it's going to be mixing with rain. It's basically going to have the same impact as rain. And then we see everything kind of move out. Watch the bridges north, though. If temperatures do drop into the upper 20s in your area, that is definitely an area to watch. This is for everybody who's sick of the cold. We've got warm air on the way next week. The 60s, not even low 60s, possibly mid 60s return for the middle of next week. So the weekend forecast, Super Bowl weekend, we've got the opening ceremonies for the Olympics on Friday. We've got the Super Bowl on Sunday. Chilly weekend overall. Temperatures generally in the 40s, but we should see sunshine. So more melting going on, but watch the refreeze cycle. That's going to continue. I'm kind of curious. I'm waiting to see whose pile of snow is going to last the longest. Based on our Kannapolis camera, James, I think I was going to say some of those piles look like they could be here by this time next week because they melted a lot from yesterday. But boy, those are big piles, and I think some of those are going to be sitting around for a while. So when we look at your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast, temperatures, again, pretty cool through the weekend, but then starting Monday, mid-50s. We'll be in the low to mid-60s on Tuesday and Wednesday, and the 10-day forecast shows pretty consistent warmth next week. There's signs of a pretty big storm basically Valentine's Day weekend.
Boo.
Yeah, right now it looks like just rain, but tell you what, man, that Valentine's Day weekend is like one of those points on the calendar climatologically where we've had a lot of winter storms that weekend. So we'll keep an eye on that. But right now, it looks like a big warm-up next week. We'll take a look at that Kannapolis camera. Look at those piles of snow.
Still there.
How long is that going to last? That'll be a question we'll try to answer. Stick around. Alex is going to join us from FMY. We'll talk about the Clash and talk about this brief wintry mix. All right, welcome back. Alex Williams joins us from WFMY. And Alex, kind of up your way, we're watching the radar closely. I know you are. You got the Clash going on up there. It looks like all event things are going on as scheduled. Give us a rundown. What's happening right now? I'm looking at our live camera. I could see them racing, or at least doing something. What's going on up there? What's this deal? Are they going to go no matter what? And what are you watching for tonight for folks that might be heading out to the Clash?
Yeah, Brad. So the Clash is on. It's going. Yeah. It's racing. It's actually underway right now. And so you can see there is a bunch of fans in the stands. That did not scare them. This has impressed me. I can't wait. We're going to get some sound hopefully later in our later newscasts from the fans that are there, and just the dedication that they have to the sport, I think, is absolutely commendable. As far as impacts, Brad, I really don't see a bunch right now. There's a few light returns on radar, maybe some light rain trying to pop in there into Forsyth County. But I'm not really expecting the cold air. And we talked about this last night where the trend for the cold air was later and later and later and later.
Yeah.
It's looking like it's not even going to catch until like 10 o'clock or so. But that band that has set itself across like southern portions of southwest Virginia, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's kind of. I agree with you. I've been kind of watching the trends, and I keep watching the temperatures more than the radar because I'm like, well, at some point the temperature's got to fall, and we've been pretty warm, even with the rain down our way. We're still stuck in the 40s. At one point, we were in the mid to upper 40s. So I agree. I think it looks like the cold air is kind of lagging behind. What are you thinking tonight as far as this kind of brief snowy mix? It certainly looks like more of an issue for you guys, north of 40, north of 85 up in your area. For us, less of an issue. So what are you telling folks that from our area and even in your area that might be going up towards the Triad and the Triangle, to be honest with you, later tonight and early tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be the main impact will be travel to roadways because this is a lower snow-water ratio. So it's going to be a little bit more moisture saturated, a wet snow, if you will. So we're still calling a trace to an inch because if we get a band like we're seeing across, the southern tier of southwest Virginia there to set itself up, you can get some higher rates. I think most of us pick up no more than half an inch. And then also mixed in that, one of the sneaky things is we could get little pockets of freezing rain here and there, and generally about 1/100th of an inch of accumulation there. So I think all of that said and done, if that comes down as a quick burst, pops onto the roadways, even though the surface temperatures, and the ground temperature probably started to come up a little bit over the last day or so.
Yeah.
And so that's probably not going to allow a whole lot of sticking, so to speak, earlier on, but eventually maybe overcome. So some slushy spots, slick travels, people who have already have snowy neighborhoods, you talked about it yesterday with some of the lack of sunshine, get those slick spots. I think that'll just add kind of some insult to injury there. And that's what we're just telling people. Be cautious in the morning if you don't have to get out. If school's delayed, wait for the crews to get and plow that fresh, snow off the roads. And then we'll warm up maybe above. I think we'll be a few degrees above freezing, but trends have been definitely towards the mid-30s for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's if we didn't have this past storm, it probably would have been a much bigger deal. But it's like people have been out and about in probably worse conditions this week than probably what we'll see tomorrow. So it's one of those things like, yeah, it's not going to be horrible. It's probably better than what we've seen early in the week. But still, yeah, I think those bridges and overpasses that we're watching. I'm curious, did you guys have any black ice this morning? I know in our foothills and our mountains, there was a weird setup last night. It actually rained for a while, and then the temperature fell, and there was some slick spots. It was really kind of an odd setup. We never dropped below freezing here, but I'm curious if you guys had any black ice issues this morning.
No, not that I heard of major issues. Now, I know that, we've been looking at some of the routes that school buses have to drive and things like that, and there's still that, very compacted snow ice onto those roads, making things very slick. And so maybe not necessarily black ice caused by that. Now, tonight, temperatures could drop rapidly enough that we could get some of that maybe flash freezing in certain spots. I think that's more of a threat tonight versus it was this morning. I didn't hear of anything big here happening impact-wise.
Yeah, we just had some isolated. It was more over towards the Boone, Blowing Rock area. There was a little bit of some black ice that formed. It was kind of like I said, a weird setup because the temperature dropped after it rained. It was the temperature went up and then getting back down, so kind of a weird setup. So I'm looking at our FutureCast, same model that we use in-house. It's been running a little cool compared to reality. You could see it said we're at 39 degrees right now. We're actually at 41 degrees. Boone's at 32, not 29. So I'm kind of curious maybe if things are running a little bit cooler.
We're not in the low 30s right now.
Yeah, so it looks like it might be running a bit cool. And so I'm kind of curious. I'm looking at the same kind of bands. You mentioned that band up in Virginia. That's impressive. And I'll be transparent with everybody out there. When you're trying to forecast tiny little bands, it's like trying to pinpoint where a thunderstorm pops up in the spring or summer. It is hard to figure out where that's going to happen, but probably somebody's going to get that. We've got probably the best threat of some flurries or some snow showers early tomorrow morning, which is kind of ironic because by then the temperatures definitely will be above freezing after sunrise. And so,
well, Brad, it's also ironic because it'll be the first time we're out at school bus at normal time in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and we're going to have snow flurries.
I know. It's like we're like, yeah, they're actually going to go to school, and it's like for the first time in a while. Yeah, it probably more of novelty for us. I jokingly call it white rain, Alex, because it's like it basically falls as snow, but it's melting on contact, so it doesn't really have much of an impact. And you mentioned that too. It's kind of a wet, heavy snow, so usually not as big a deal until you get to elevated surfaces or grassy areas. Certainly not going to stick pretty easily as it did this past weekend. But that looks to be like kind of the time.
One of those it'll be one of those things to like tonight. People go to bed and there won't be anything, and they wake up and maybe there's a coating on some grassy surfaces, elevated surfaces. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's true. I think a lot of people will sleep through this because it's probably, if you're not a night owl, you're probably going to miss this actually falling in some cases. But it is very fascinating to kind of see how this unfolds because, we joke about this. We used to have this saying all the time here in the Carolinas, cold air chasing moisture never works out. And this might be one of the rare occasions where it does happen, but even when it does, it doesn't seem to be that big of an impact. It will be interesting, I think, tomorrow night. If there's anything wet left over, it actually looks much colder tomorrow night into Friday morning. And I think that's an impact we've been playing up here locally, that we still have big piles of snow and ice around, a lot of melting. We might have more of a black ice issue on Friday morning than tomorrow morning because it looks like mid-20s in some areas by Friday morning. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, and that maybe Friday morning might be a little dicier in some areas.
Yeah, especially once we break out of the clouds. Tonight we're not expected to break out of the clouds so much, so act a little blanket, keep us a little warmer, keep those overnight lows from dropping so quickly. Tomorrow night we won't have that luxury. There'll be no clouds. We'll be clearing out, and we'll just lose all that heat. Whatever little heat we managed to grab tomorrow afternoon, it'll be gone, and that'll allow those temperatures to drop a little bit more as well. Sunday morning especially looks very cold for us. It could be into the mid-teens, upper teens.
Yeah, that's a short but stout little blast of cold air coming in this weekend. And then it's like gone. We do have a live camera, thanks to James, up there on 77 near the Virginia line. This is heading up towards Fancy Gap, north of the Mount Airy area. Well, on the radar, you could see we have some snow moving through that area. That's a pretty common spot to see some snow and also a ton of fog in that area. When you're coming out of Virginia, that's kind of your welcome to North Carolina, and that's a wild weather area up there when you're driving. I've driven through there from Ohio, and nothing, you get to that area and there'd be like ice on everything. It's like, look like an ice storm came through, and then you drive out and you're down in the foothills and you see Pilot Mountain off to the left, and it's a beautiful view, but that is a wild area to drive if you've ever been up that way.
Yeah, I have. I mean, that's the way I go home. I take, get up to I-77, go up I-77 to Whitfill, and then take 81 into Northeast Tennessee. So that's the way I go. And I'll never forget the first time I came, or I think it was when I was moving here. The night I was moving here, I packed everything up and drove up through there, and they had some wind, right? That they get strong winds up there as well. And I mean, the car's being blown around, and I'm like, wow, this is just absolutely crazy. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to me that they're seeing horrible conditions right now with those stronger rates of snow.
Yeah, that's a little band there, and those are the kind of little bands we got to watch tonight to see if they kind of filter down this way. And that one's moving kind of up into Virginia, but we might see some more form back to the southwest, and that will be it'll be curious to watch tonight. Certainly compared to what we had this past weekend, I don't want to say it's a non-event, but it's kind of a low-impact event for most of us compared to what we've seen this week. Here locally, Alex, the big school district, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, this is their first time back to school tomorrow. They're on a regular schedule. That's why James and I are joking that we might have flurries the first morning they're back in school, and it's kind of ironic.
2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been
2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a lot of remote learning and at home days. And what are the schools like up there? Is everybody back? Are some schools back? Is it kind of hit or miss?
Oh, yeah, it's kind of hit or miss. Guilford County has been doing a lot of kind of remote instruction.
Yeah.
remote instruction? How much is actually going on there? What are they doing?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything bad about our schools. They're doing the best they can with the weather conditions, but the bus routes are horrible. I mean, Amber Lake's been reporting up here tonight and just showing some of the bus routes are absolutely horrible, and it makes sense. That's why, if you're sitting at home, you're like, my streets are cleared. Why are we still out of school? It's because those bus routes are terrible.
Yeah.
And, it's all the kids there. So they have to take that all in. I don't envy the superintendents whatsoever. They have to make those decisions. There's actually a couple schools, though, that are still going back to school tomorrow.
Yeah, it is a tough decision. Around here, a big district, you got just a couple neighborhoods here and there can really mess up the bus routes. And then the school grounds themselves are hard to clear. When you have so many schools, you got to clear parking lots and driveways. And this was a lot of snow, and it has not been easy to melt and get rid of, though the last 24 hours have been pretty dramatic here. Let's briefly talk about the warm-up next week, because I think a lot of folks are getting excited for that. I'm actually forecasting mid-60s. I don't think you guys are going quite as warm, but are people looking forward to the warm-up up your way? Are they tired of the cold and snow? I think when I show the 7-day, I think everyone just gravitates towards the sunny and 60s right now.
Yeah, I think everybody has had their fill of winter, including the entire, weather team here, right? We're all cheering because it's like, yes, if we see precip in the 7-day, it's going to be rain, or if we see that at that point. But yeah, I've got us in the upper 50s. Some of the models, though, they have us into the lower 60s. So that's very welcome. Do we finally see that big, huge ridge over the west that's been, just locking us into that northwest flow? Does it finally break down and shift, the ridge to the east so that the west can start getting some rain? Because they definitely do need some rain out there.
Yeah, and they need some snow, because as somebody who went skiing out there earlier in the winter, I've never seen parts of Utah and Colorado with such little snow this late in the season. Now, if you've gone skiing out west, sometimes the best time to ski there is late winter and spring, even out west. But it's been crazy. Like, I think parts of Utah have had less snow than some areas in the Carolinas. And even Florida. I saw a crazy stat, like in January, Mariana, Florida's had more snow than Salt Lake City, Utah, which is like crazy to think about in a whole month of January. But that's been the opposite pattern. It's been warm and dry out west, cold and wet here in the east. And at some point, you're right, the pattern's got to flip, right? Everything in Mother Nature kind of does that, so we're waiting for that flip. Now, one of the crazy things we've seen because of this cold snap here is a lot of icicles. I was posting about this earlier in the week that we're not used to having giant icicles with the thaw refreeze cycle, and we've been getting some great pictures and videos in, but this could be dangerous to your home. And we talked to a meteorologist from IBHS today about ice dams, which are basically when the water and snow melts and refreezes near your gutter, it can back up water. You can get leaks in your house when you see these big, these giant icicles. And so we talked to them today about some of the things you can do to kind of winterize your house when you're in this type of pattern.
So make sure the gutters are clear. Soon as this latest storm was over, I went out and I, pushed all the snow away from the edge of my gutters where they drain out, and I made sure that none of that pine straw kind of got pushed up, clogging them. I actually had some chunks of ice to pull out of my gutters as well. You want to make sure that water flows freely, off your roof into the gutters and down the downspouts and away from your house. So just make sure, gutters are clear and free of debris. They're not clogged up. If you didn't get a chance to insulate those outdoor water spigots, there's some really inexpensive fixes you could do. The foam covers, which Home Depot and all the other stores were out of. I think everyone ran out to get those during this last storm, but I actually got some pretty inexpensive ones online that were just, it was kind of like a cloth bag that you put over your spigot, and you Velcro it around there. You want to protect those from breaking as well. And then, of course, the bigger concern is often those pipes inside your home, exterior walls, those places that are less heated, under bathroom cabinets, under bathroom sinks. Make sure those are good and insulated ahead of the next storm, whether you're using foam insulation, a do-it-yourself type fix like towels or duct tape, but just make sure those are ready ahead of the next incoming cold.
Yeah, it's certainly things you don't think about around here because typically our winter storms, Alex, are kind of in and out and we're done. As you mentioned, the weather teams are kind of wore out. I think people were out because we had back-to-back winter storms and we had all this Arctic air in between. So the duration to me is something that will stick with me about this winter that we've had so far. Not so much the individual storm, though it was big. It's just that it's been so consistent, and that's something that's not very common here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, I will say the leaking roofs and things like that. Our own anchor, Chad Silver, has been dealing with that at his house. And I know that others have been dealing with some of those leaking issues as well. So try to clear out those gutters, especially as temperatures are supposed to warm up, especially into Friday, and get some of that sunshine. That'll really help increase the... It's crazy how we've watched the snow here just go like this because of those overnight temperatures, the dew points being higher, and it just eats away the snow.
Yeah, last night was a lot. When I woke up this morning, you're right, I noticed probably the most melting I've seen so far in the past 24 hours. That kind of warmer, like you said, more humid overnight. We lost a lot of the snow depth really, really quickly because of that. The more humid airs definitely had a big part of that. Something else we'll have to watch out for, as things warm back up, sometimes that's when pipes have their biggest issues. When the thawing starts, we start to see more leaks develop. I know from a city standpoint, that's when the water mains become more of an issue. As the ground starts to thaw out a little bit, they tend to see a little bit more issues. The other thing is, and this is something I'm sure as a driver, everyone will start experiencing, potholes are going to become a big, big issue as things start to warm up because that ground is going to start breaking up as things loosen up. Before we go tonight, we'll take one more look here at the Clash, which is going on right now. I really got to give kudos to those fans. Even though it's like, what is it? What do you guys have? Like 36, 37? That's still cold, Alex. I mean, they're out there. It's kind of yucky out.
Yeah.
I give them credit for being out there.
Those grandstands are packed.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love to see all the fans out. That shows how excited folks are for NASCAR, and especially be at a local track like that. That is such a cool thing to have at Bowman Gray Stadium there. And I can't wait to hear from some of the fans tonight to see what they said and how excited they were. I am so happy NASCAR does this, gets back to the roots, goes to these smaller tracks, really gets back to the fans, and this is what it's all about. So be safe out there tonight, guys. We'll keep an eye on the snow chances tomorrow morning. Hopefully a warmer weekend ahead. We'll talk to you tomorrow, but stick around. We've got more WCNC and FMY Plus coming up.